Hi, and welcome back, everybody, to our second Scottish Family Party uh, conversation group. Today, we're going to talk about pregnancy and abortion. I think during our session here, a couple more people gonna join us, but that's it for now. Just to let you know, today I'm going to try to make it accessible for women and for men. But obviously the experiences of women are completely different of the experiences of men, because we are more like around you and we're just watching the situation, but we also have to like deal with certain issues, of course. Now, because women and men have different experiences, I would ask everybody to be respectful to the fact that we have different experiences. So to all of us guys, when we have questions, try to ask the questions respectful. And to the women, please be aware that there are just certain things that we can't know, and there are certain things that we can't feel because we have completely different biology. So if we sometimes come across as ignorant, it's just because there are certain things that we don't know. Just like you don't know what it's like to be a man. Okay, I would like to introduce one of our guests. We were supposed to have a second guest. Um, there, there is supposed to be a second guest. I hope that she's going to join us, but she gave birth a couple of days ago, and I don't know, maybe because in the hospital she wasn't able to join the meeting now. I hope she does, but we'll see. Our first guest today is Sally Ann. And I invited her today because we are all younger people and none of us has had children yet. So I thought it's just fair or just right to invite somebody who has actually been pregnant and who has raised children. So Sally Ann, um, nice of you to join us. And before you tell us a little bit about your experience of pregnancy, I would put a question out to everybody and write down your answer. What does the word pregnancy evoke in you? So when you think about pregnancy, what comes to mind? How do you feel about just the word? Or yeah, I'll give you a moment and then you can share it with us. I know it's like in school, isn't it? Don't worry, there are only wrong answers. Okay. We're gonna start, and I'm gonna start with the professional, Sally Ann.
Hi, so I don't know what you want me to tell you, but I kind of feel after intro, Philip, I kind of feel the need to just give you a couple of facts that most people don't know, okay? So if that's okay. So one of the facts is that there's a massive amount of research that's been done in America and now other countries that show a number of things about when a man and woman has a child, okay?
I
There's
have
a
to interrupt you.
perception.
I have to interrupt. Too much information. Just your personal feeling. When you think about
Okay.
it, just in 3, 4 words, just what comes out of you.
Yeah, about pregnancy.
Just your feeling about it.
Pregnancy pregnancy is one of the nicest experiences I've ever had in my life.
Okay.
That's a couple of words. It's one of the most intuitive, kind of heartwarming experiences I've had in my life. But it is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. And I did it when I was 18, which was very young. I was married young. And I had ended up having children every 2 years. It's one of the most beautiful things I did, but it's the most hardest thing I ever did because I was young.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear about that in a moment in length. Andrew, do you want to do you want to share with us your thoughts on pregnancy, what it evokes in you? You have to unmute yourself if you want to talk. But if you don't want to talk, that's fine as well. No? Okay. Marta, what does it invoke in you?
To be honest, for me, it's just a word, first of all, describing a woman expecting a baby. Mm-hmm. And there are so many different situations in life when if I know the story of the person, then I might think, oh, is it a positive thing? Are there positive emotion associated to the word pregnancy or not?
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Dominic?
Wouldn't know what to say, honestly.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Nimi, Rebecca? Francesca, sorry, Francesca.
Screaming, as in like when they're giving birth, just pain. That's all I think of when they're pushing out the baby. Yeah.
Okay. Masedi?
I think of increase. It makes me think of increase and a new chapter, challenges, love, joy, happiness, sadness, a whole bunch of things.
Okay. Okay. Now, what I feel is, for me, it's the only miracle that we as humans can actively be part of. And for me, it's the essence of womanhood. I think that there are, yeah, I find it incredibly beautiful. I think this is what we are made for as humans, to procreate, and that's the special thing that only women can do. And I think it's a huge blessing from my view for women, but I also know that it's a huge burden. So to me, it's burden and blessing at the same time. Oh, I want to say hi to our second guest once the audio is connected. Hi, Claire.
Hello, how are you?
Hi there. Very, very well. So good to have you here. How are you doing?
Okay, we were a little late because Lily had her cannula taken out. So we needed a comfort feed afterwards to settle back down, because it's quite traumatic when you don't know what's going on. But yes, there she is.
Oh, hello. Hi there.
But
so
she's settled now.
So I just asked the question to everybody, what the word pregnancy meant to them, or what it evoked in them. And since you just went through it in just 2 sentences, what would you what does it evoke in you right now?
It's life-changing, and it's supremely beautiful thing to happen to you. The experience of carrying the baby and then having that, and starting this is my first child, so starting your new family together. It's a very amazing thing, and yes, it's quite overwhelming sometimes.
Thank you. I will ask you first. I wanted to ask Sally Ann about her experience about becoming a mother, but I will ask you first because now your baby is sleeping, and I know that can change. So seize the day, or seize the chance. Tell us what you want to tell us about your pregnancy, your fears, your hopes. how it was to be pregnant, the good things, the bad things. And I would say, take 10 minutes. So I give you 10 minutes
Okay.
to talk about it.
Okay. I think I mean, finding out that I was pregnant, my case is a little different. I'm 43 years old, and I was told at the age of 30 that I would not be able to have children. And I grieved through that process. I had to come to terms with that. I have made very special relationships with my nephews and nieces, but I had to accept that it wasn't going to be for me. And that's a very hard thing to do. And quite unexpectedly, last year, I fell pregnant, and I did my first pregnancy test and couldn't believe it. And for those of you that I live in the Highlands of Scotland, and I live 50 minutes away from the nearest chemist, so I had to drive 50 minutes to get a second test just to prove to myself it could really, really be true. And it was. We were very excited and delighted. The first trimester for me was quite difficult. There was a lot of sickness, there was a lot of physical exhaustion, and it actually started to become something quite unpleasant. And I started to hate being pregnant. I wanted the baby, but the process wasn't fun. And I felt this is supposed to feel amazing, this is supposed to feel special, and it doesn't. And is there something wrong with me because I'm not enjoying this process of growing up and being unable to eat and being unable to do anything, and the tiredness? And I thought, if this goes on for 9 months, will it affect my ability to bond with my baby? Will I be able to cope with it? And it cleared up very quickly. It does stop very soon. It's just a small process while all new hormones are rushing through your body, creating a new environment to actually grow your baby. And it does take a lot out of you, but it stops. And that's the most important thing. And then you get to go through the process of blooming and enjoying it and seeing the development go along. We went for our 12-week scan, and I must admit, even at that point, I was a little worried that they would put the ultrasound on me and see there was nothing there, and that the pregnancy tests I'd taken were mistakes. I was still worried that it wasn't a real thing. And I think I also expected maybe groupings of cells, maybe a little blob. I wasn't really when they put the ultrasound on me and the picture came up of this fully formed little person. We didn't know she was a girl at that point, but there was no, the head, the abdomen, the legs were all beautiful.
How
And
many,
it was that
sorry,
moment of,
how many weeks
that
in?
was at 12 weeks.
12 weeks.
12. So at 12 weeks, I didn't have a blob of cells in my body anymore. I had this little being. And that was quite amazing. So the photograph that they printed out, it went up on the office wall, and I would keep going into the office every now and then and taking it down and staring at it and then putting it back. And so through the second trimester, by 18 weeks, they were telling me I should be able to feel her moving, and I couldn't. I didn't feel anything. It was more 22 weeks before I felt kicks. So at first, for a few weeks, I felt again, why isn't my baby kicking? How come everybody else can feel their baby? My stomach was still very flat. It didn't really show. So I knew I was pregnant, but I wanted everybody else to know I was pregnant too. However, when she did start kicking, she did not stop, and she has been a very active baby all the way throughout. Lots of somersaults, lots of turning, lots of kicking and punching, and it was just lovely all through the day to have that constant feeling of there she is, healthy, happy. She must be strong to be able to do all that movement all the time and have that real connection to her. And again, my stomach was always very, very small. I think it's the strange thing with pregnancy. Some women can have different size bumps from different children. You know, one child you can have a huge bump and then the next one is very small. Mine was very, very neat and tidy. However, in all her scans, she was growing at the rate that they wanted. So everything kind of went well until January. And we had a little bit of a blip, a bit of a scare. We went for a growth scan. Because of my age, I had additional scans. And in her left ventricle, there was a dilation. And the tolerance for this dilation is 10. And my baby came in at 10.1. So this was enough to have her referred to a special prenatal medical clinic. So it was very hard to get an answer in the first few days as to what that measurement meant. People kept telling me, well, it could correct itself. Don't worry, it's only just borderline. It might get better, but nobody was saying this is what it means. And eventually, a few days later, my consultant phoned me up and he was fantastic. I said, what does it mean? I'm not going to be scared. I just need to be prepared if it means something that's going to be life-changing for us. So he did talk about it's normally a sign of perhaps learning difficulties. He didn't think it would be Down syndrome because we'd already had the scans for that and it doesn't develop later on. He said again, it's very likely in his experience it would correct itself, but a week later we were going to have a second scan and a second measurement. He said that if the measurement was larger and still growing, we would then go to either Aberdeen Hospital or Glasgow Hospital, where they have far more complex scanning equipment and they could find out exactly what was going on with her. If it was returned to normal or under the tolerance of 10, we would just get on with our pregnancy and it was just something that happened to us and everything's fine. And luckily for us, we went there.
Oh, you're muted. Claire, you're muted. Still muted? Oh, yeah. No, it's good.
Yeah. We got a score of 9.3, so we were well back on track to be normal. And every scan, because we had 2 other scans afterwards, and all her measurements were beautiful. Her weight was beautiful, so we knew her growth was good. I had developed gestational diabetes, which is a form of diabetes you just have during pregnancy. And again, that can cause it can cause the baby to have too much glucose and overgrow and then can't deliver properly. So it's something that needs to be monitored, and you can medicate if you need to. I controlled mine completely with diet. It was quite easy, so I never needed medication and it never affected the growth, so it wasn't actually a factor for us. So there are little things that can creep in that can affect your pregnancy, but I think the most important thing is not to ever get upset about them. You just need to remain calm and deal with those as they come up and just monitor how they are. And she grew beautifully. Again, we didn't have the birth that we wanted this weekend. Stuart, Lily's daddy, and I had made a lot of plans about how we wanted to have our birth and about how he was going to look after me, and the massage points to help relieve pain, the playlist that we wanted to listen to, all these plans we did a hypnobirthing, which is a kind of relaxation technique to help you during labor. So we put a lot of preparation in to try and make it as comfortable and as natural a process for me. However, best laid plans do not always work, and they said they wanted to induce me early, a week early, and we went in last Friday to be inducted, and on Saturday about 7 o'clock I started with contractions. Those contractions continued for 24 hours with nothing happening at all, no dilation, so they couldn't break the water. So I was getting a little tired at this point. Eventually, I think it must have been about 7 o'clock on Sunday, my waters broke naturally, and we thought, that's fantastic. We can carry on with our plan. Everything's going according to what we want. But unfortunately, they wouldn't let Stuart on the ward because he'd already had his 2-hour allocation visiting me under the COVID rules. So then I was sat for another 5 hours without Lily's daddy, and all those beautiful things we'd planned to do, the massages on my back, the different breathing techniques, all the things that were going to help me through my labor were missing. And that again that caused me a lot of distress because I wanted him there. So we ended up in the ridiculous situation. They said I could go out of the ward and stand in the corridor with him. So I stood in the corridor of Regmore Hospital in a hospital gown, having contractions while he tried to look after me. It's not ideal. And we eventually went up to the labour ward, to which then Lily's daddy can join us. And Stuart was with me on the labour ward. And after, again, getting on to 4:30 in the morning, it seemed that I had stopped dilating at 6 centimetres, and I'd been stuck at 6 centimetres for 3 hours, where I should have been ready at that point. And at that point, Lily was starting to slow down, and her heart rate was starting to slow down, and she was starting to struggle. So any aspiration for a natural birth had to come to a halt at that point, and we had to go in for an emergency C-section, just so that she wasn't put under any more stress. And that was a strange experience because it was all done under epidural. So I was conscious and awake throughout the whole process. So at least there was no recovery time afterwards. And after 20 minutes of going into theatre, they were flashing my baby at me. They kind of said, here she is. And I only got to see a bottom for a second while they took her off to clean her. But very quickly, we had skin-to-skin contact. And while they were still fixing up the scar and putting everything back and sewing me up, my baby was sat on my chest and we were talking to each other. So that's, although it's not what you maybe planned, it wasn't the sort of experience my mother had in the 70s when she was put under general anaesthetic and didn't come round for 2 days. At least within 20 minutes, we were together while I was still even being sewn up. So that's how she came to be. We're still in hospital because we think we picked up an infection in the theatre. So she's been on antibiotics for a week and we're going home on Monday. But she's just had a cannula taken out, so she's under observation. But she's doing great. She's putting on weight. She's she's quite quiet. She's she's crying now because I think she's just done her napping, so I might have to sign out for 5 minutes and deal with that. But she's feeding well. That's another sort of anxiety I had was I wanted to breastfeed and I wanted to make sure that happened well. And, I know sometimes some women, for no fault of their own, struggle with it. It's not an easy thing to learn. And the advantage of being in hospital all week is that I've had midwives on hand almost at every feed to talk us through it. So now we're very good at it, and she's feeding healthily, and we're looking forward to getting back home and getting on with our life.
Right.
Oh,
Can
bless you.
can I have you for another like 4 or 5 minutes before you take a little break and then rejoin us if you want to?
Yeah,
Okay.
we will. Yes, we'll go and deal with this nappy, and then we'll come back and see you.
Perfect. I like to ask you, and I know there were some issues that had nothing to do with the pregnancy, but how was the support of your partner, and how do you think it was for your partner? How does he feel?
He was very, very distressed because for 5 hours he was locked outside of a ward, and I was inside having contractions, and he wanted to be with me. He wanted to do everything that we'd planned. He wanted to look after me, and he wanted to enjoy the process of his daughter coming into the world. And this is something that we were supposed to, all parents should do together. And because of the COVID restrictions, we'd wasted our 2 hours in the morning having a visit on the ward, and now he wasn't allowed back until I went to the labour suite. And just not having him there, it caused so much stress and anxiety for us both, because he he'd been learning exactly where to help massage my back and keep me out of pain. So I was on my own, and he was on his own at the other side of the door, and it was hard for us both. And I think, yeah, hard for me for being in pain, and hard for him for being shut out of a process that, one of the most important days of his life
Yeah.
is his little girl coming into the world, and he had to stand outside and wait to be called in. It's very, very difficult. Fathers are just as much part of the labour process as the mother is. The support that they can give, the things that they can do for you is amazing. A strong birthing partner makes all the difference. And I had a strong birthing partner, but he was in the corridor.
Yeah.
So that was difficult on both of us.
Yeah. I would.
And again, all week, it's been the same situation. He only gets to visit for 2 hours a day. So after a week, he's actually only seen his daughter for 12 hours. She's been in the world for 5 days, and he's seen, 6 now, and he's seen her for 12 hours all in all. And that's harsh.
That sounds.
Very harsh for us
Yeah.
both.
Yeah. It sounds unnecessarily cruel, to be honest.
Mm.
Could I would like maybe 2 questions before you're leaving the room. Has some
Yeah, she's not too upset.
She's
So
not too upset. Okay. Does somebody have
she's
a
not
question
upset, no.
about the pregnancy or the birth? Raise your hands. Don't be shy. Yeah.
And what does it feel like to have a baby inside? Is it like a balloon, or is it just, what does it feel like?
It's you can walk around in the day kind of forgetting you're pregnant, and then suddenly she'll kick you so hard it makes you jump, because it's a kick from within your own body, and you're just, walk through the kitchen and go, ooh, and it was that little movement. And she has favorite times of days where she would move. And her dad, Stuart, reads to me in the evening. So we read a book to each other. And I think that sort of sound of her dad's voice, she used to really enjoy that. So she'd kick around quite a lot when he was reading, and he'd read Winnie the Pooh and things like that. So if you can interact with the baby while she's still inside you, you will get those reactions back. And if her little foot comes to the surface of your skin, you can see it. You can see a heel stuck out. And if you tickle it, she waits a few seconds, and then she'll pull it back, and then she might put it back out again, just exploring what that is. So she can hear you. You can interact with her. You can sing to her. You can talk to her, and that helps her in the first day of her life, because she comes out and you talk, and she's like, I know that. I know that sound. That's familiar. I'm still safe. My I'm out of my little warm sack, but actually I know daddy's voice and I know mummy's voice, so I'm okay. Everything's safe, and it helps them stay calm. But yes, it's lovely to actually feel them moving and interacting with you and responding to you. It's one of my favourite parts, I think, of the pregnancy.
Philip, unmute yourself.
Thank you. I just said, Hannah, you've got a question. Please unmute yourself, but I was muted. So.
So you just had a baby. There.
Oh, the sound is not
Hello.
good. Can you try again, Hannah?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now it's better.
Okay. I was just going to ask. Sorry, I'm catching up. So Claire, have you just had a baby? Is that?
Yeah, she's
Can I see?
here. I don't know if you can. Where are you?
I can see her. Oh
Yes,
man.
we're
Yeah.
still in hospital.
My main thing that I was going to ask, it's not really to do with the physical pregnancy. I was just going to ask, have you read like, I suppose, any books or anything like from about parenting and stuff? Just because I know there's so many books out there. There's like Christian ones, secular ones, like all different kinds of advice about like stuff, you know, the co-sleeping stuff, and about like I've heard there's this thing where you can do like baby sign language as like before they can talk.
Yeah.
So have you done any of that, or are you just kind of?
I did. You get from the NHS, you get a book anyway that takes you step by step, week by week, what's happening to your body and how the baby's growing and what's going to change, and the birth process. But you also get assigned when the baby's born. You get your health visitor that checks on the weight and growth and physical development of the baby, and you get an early years practitioner, and she is like a trained nursery nurse, but with extra, and they will help you go through the process of bonding with your baby. And you can start that before you have your baby, so bonding with your baby in the womb, and then you can carry on afterwards on different play techniques and how you can develop speech, how you can develop play, how you can do bonding, what your baby can see and hear at different stages, so how you can interact. And sign language, as you said, is a very good one because you can use it with words. So if you're saying, is that up or is that down? Or just, it helps them correlate that there's that sort of abstract concept that when the word up is said, it's actually up there. So you can combine them together just to give them little signals as well that backs up what they're hearing. So yeah, sign language is definitely a very useful one for babies and small children because it helps them understand the concept of language. So you do get this lovely person, mine's called Kirsten, and she comes up with all kinds of ideas and ways that you can help that development really, and make it fun for you and make it fun for your baby. So I didn't read too much theory books, and I sort of joined groups as well, mothers groups and parenting groups. Unfortunately, Stuart and I can't physically join parent groups at the moment because of COVID, so we can't go and meet other babies and other mums and dads that are going through the same thing. But hopefully, towards the end of the year, that will happen, and Lily can start making friends, and we can have that support from other parents too, of people that are going through the same thing as us and sharing ideas. And oh dear, are we getting cross? Okay.
That's fine. You guys gonna take your break, and I will hand the microphone
Yeah.
over to Sally Ann. Thank you so much, and see you in a couple of minutes.
Okay. All right then. Thank you.
Now, moving on to you, Sally Ann. Tell us in like 10 minutes your your story also, I think it would be interesting, at least for me, to know, was it a wanted pregnancy? Because you said you were quite young. How strong was the relationship to your partner? So a little bit about the framework of your pregnancy as well. I think that might be interesting as well. Sally-Ann.
Okay, so I was engaged when I got pregnant. It wasn't a planned pregnancy. We planned our wedding, planned everything. I'd been engaged for about a year, and then I fell pregnant. The pregnancy actually put off my wedding. So because I became pregnant, the wedding was put off. I didn't want to rush the wedding. I didn't want to rush into something. So I decided to put the wedding off, and we ended up waiting 2 years to go through a wedding because my daughter was just walking, so she was 1 when I eventually got married. So in effect, it was nearly 2 years. So my pregnancy was, I can only say it was beautiful. You know, when you meet somebody and you want to get married, and like you do this in a way that's kind of done in love rather than something that is a bit hit and miss. You really enjoy every second. You know, we had a lot of pressure put on us because I wasn't married. I didn't have my own home. I ended up having to live with in-laws, and there was a massive amount of pressure on going through the process because my in-laws were Christian, and my mother-in-law didn't like the fact that I was pregnant. She wanted the wedding. She had her views of how she wanted her only son to go into a married life, and it wasn't to have a child first and then get married afterwards. So, and we didn't have anywhere to live because suddenly I had a baby, and we wanted to be together, obviously, and the only space for that was with my mother-in-law. So it put a massive amount of pressure on us as a couple, because my mother-in-law, even though I was pregnant, and I was engaged, I wasn't allowed to share the same room as my husband. So even after my daughter was born, we were in 2 separate places, which put a massive amount of pressure on our relationship at the time. So it kind of takes off that, it takes that romance away, you know, because going through pregnancy with a partner is quite beautiful. It really is quite beautiful. And it takes the romance out of that when you're in separate environments and there's a lot of additional pressure from other people and what they want and what they need. And you're not cemented because you're not even in your own home. So there was a lot of pressure on us. And I often say, if you can get through that right at the beginning, when there's supposed to be this, you have this vision of, you know, sharing the most intimate parts of that pregnancy, which is, and you're in 2 separate bedrooms, you're in 2 separate environments, and the environment you're in always has other people in it. So there's never any kind of intimacy in just sharing. So that was quite difficult. And then we got married and we bought our own house, and everything was upside down, you know, everything was back to front. And I mean, I'm quite feminine, so women have these dreams about, you know, you're going to meet somebody, you're going to fall in love, you're going to, you know, and I know men have the same dream. I'm older now and a lot wiser, but women get quite selfish and we want the white wedding dress, and we want the hero waiting at the end of it, and then you have the children, and there's like a system in your head. And I was all back to front. I got pregnant, had to wait 2 marriages, not living with my partner, not sharing that kind of really intimate kind of environment with him. So it was quite difficult. And then when we eventually, I've had a belief in marriage and relationships, and we then had children every 2 years. So I went on to have 3 other children every 2 years. And the second time, there's this thing around when you go through something first time, when a woman gets pregnant, somewhere inside her, this thing is that she's the first person that's had horrendous morning sickness. She's the first person that doesn't sleep at night. Nobody in the whole wide world has ever felt like her, because you get this really selfish time where there's just you, your baby, and your husband or your partner. And nobody's ever felt the first cramp in the way you have. You just get in this zone, you know, where it's all about you. And I've never been selfish in my life, but when I was pregnant, it was all about me, right? It was all about me, this wonderful baby, and my husband, and that was what, you know, that sort of. And so the first time you do something, it's kind of like the most exciting time, because it's the very first time you've experienced it. So everything's multiplied by time. The first time your baby moves, it literally takes your breath away, because it's like, wow, you know, it's a real wow moment. And the first time your partner feels your baby, it's like the wonder in him is like, wow. So everything is wow the first time. So when that wow is interrupted by not having that intimate space, or other people thinking they can make the decisions, or it's quite difficult. So the second time around, it's a little bit marred by that, you know, because you haven't got that everything's about you, because you realize it's not, you know, it's just simply not. So that process is the and then when you have the second child on top of the first child, it's sharing your time. You know, it's how you because one of the things that was quite a profound thing for me was when you have your first child and you go through all that beauty, because without a doubt it is, even when there's a struggle, there's something very unique about this experience that you won't get in any other relationship or any other time in your life. There's nothing that kind of aligns itself to be the same thing. It simply isn't. So so you have all of this, and you bring your child into the world, and you look after it, and every moment, the first time it talks to you, you know, the first time it looks at you and follows you, everything is like a huge event, you know. And you tell everybody, you tell the grandparents, the auntie, the postman, everybody gets to hear about this because it's such a huge thing. Then when you go into your second pregnancy, it's like you've got so much energy into this first child. You say, well, have I got enough for the second child? How is this going to look? So the second pregnancy is different. It has a lot of different, you know, am I going to have time? Am I going to be able to give this child as much love? What happens, you know, when two children want you at the same time? And, you know, there's lots of kind of things you ask yourself. But still, the pregnancy is one of the most, it's one of the most kind of unique things that happens in a man and a woman's life. And I kind of challenge a bit about this thing around men, because one of the things I didn't realize when I was carrying my children was the profound difference it made to my partner's life. You know, because women go into things, girls go into things with this ideal that your man is going to be your hero, and, you know, he's going to be your child's hero, and everything's wonderful. And it was like that for me, but it's quite challenging because we're different creatures, you know, we approach things in very, very different ways. And one of the things I learned afterwards, way afterwards, like when my children were actually grown up, because one of the things that's interesting about Claire and I is that Claire is 10 years younger than me, 11 years younger than me. But the experiences are identical. The difference is that she's had more time to prepare for her pregnancy, because I listening to her talking, I'm talking about the way she feels and the things that she had and the things that she planned for. I didn't have time to plan for those because I was very young. So I'd never thought about the things that she thought about preparing for the birth and all of those things. I just went with the flow, you know. I didn't have the same kind of time to say how do I want this to be with my husband, you know. So we just went with the flow. And after my children were all born and after they were grown up, one of the things I didn't know, which I wish I'd known at the time, is there's a misconception in the world that this is all about the women. All right, it's about a woman carries a child, her body changes, the biology changes, she goes through different emotions, she changes, she has different feet, she starts thinking about parenting a child, and she's feeling the heartbeat within her. So everybody says it's all about the woman, but in actual fact, now I know it's not, because I don't know whether any of you know this, but when a woman becomes pregnant, her husband's biology changes. Okay, he has a biological change in his body. So his hormones and he has a chemical reaction as soon as his partner is pregnant. And when she goes through that pregnancy, his biology within him also changes. So his hormones change, he produces different hormones, he becomes more in tune with his partner, and his whole physiology changes. So his brain structure changes. The chemicals that have an imprint on a woman's change is identical in a man's change. So a man's brain, because everybody thinks that when a woman becomes pregnant, her biology changes because of this baby. There's a different situation. They didn't never when I was pregnant, they didn't even understand that the same functions of my brain and my body actually happens in a man. So as soon as a man knows his wife is pregnant, and what's really super interesting about this, which I wish I'd known, was that even when a man adopts, he still goes through the same physical changes. So a man's brain and a woman's brain, the chemical reactions within a brain, as soon as a child is introduced to them, even the concept where a woman's pregnant, a man's body changes. And I never understood that. So I always felt kind of slightly different to my husband. I never understood that we were actually doing the same journey, exactly the same journey together. You know, so his body and mind was preparing him in a way physically to respond to the baby's cries. So for example, I never understood that a child, that when your child cries for the first time, you that child's cry imprints in your brain to the point where if your child's in a room next door and there are 5 children in there, even when that child is 5 days old, you will know it's your child that's crying. Okay. And I kind of thought that because we're in tune with it. This is my belief system. I'm in tune with my baby. I carried my baby for 9 months and I know exactly what that baby is. I never understood that the same thing happens for a man. As soon as a man is introduced straight away to his baby's cry, they did tests where you can put 10 babies in a room and a man will know it's baby's cry straight away. And I never knew that, you know, I didn't know that. And now I know that, it kind of, I realized it would have made a big difference to how I gelled with my partner or how I trusted my partner and I believed in him to have the same instincts that I had. You know, because we as women are told that actually we're carrying it, it's our body, there's more things going on with us, and that simply isn't true. And we know that now. Medicine knows that. Sorry.
Sally, I hate to interrupt you while you're talking about
No, it's cool.
are.
Sorry.
No, but I
Okay.
would like to open the floor for 2 or 3 questions from the audience, and just either raise your hand or leave a raised hand emoji. Who's got a question for Sally Ann? Don't be shy. Okay, well, did you think about your questions? I've got a quick one. So you've got 4 children. Would you say that you became more experienced with every pregnancy? And you talked about your fears of during the second pregnancy, that you wouldn't be able to give them an equal amount of attention. Did that decline afterwards on the 3rd and 4th pregnancy?
Yeah. I mean, when you're a parent, it switches on a lot of switches inside yourself. You switch on your emotions, switches on your problem solving, it switches on your fears. One of my most profound fears, I realized as soon as I gave birth to my second child, that was an unfounded fear. You love your children regardless. It's not something that's in situ there, or it wasn't for me. Okay. But it brings a massive amount of fears with it. I mean, I remember actually until my children, I still do it, but there's a span of time of about 10 years as I was having my children where I used to pray every day, morning and night, that if anything was ever going to happen to my children, it had to happen to me and not them. So you kind of, it switches on such a kind of selfless thing within you that is quite profound. But the fear is real because the more children you have, it's crazy busy, you know, and it's how you make sure each of those children have exactly the same amount of mum and exactly the same amount of dad. Because even if you've got one that's more quiet and one that's more needy and one that's more loud and one that's more talkative, you know, you realize that you still have to regulate yourself and be very mindful that just a child that's quiet doesn't mean it doesn't need you or want you. So those things, you are constantly switched into these things, and you're the answer to all of those needs. And it is exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting, because it's not as simple as physically cooking lunch and dinner and you worry about what food they're eating and how much they sleep in and all of that stuff. It's the emotional stuff it is, you know. How are they going to develop? If I say the wrong thing, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
That's going into our next talk in a couple of weeks when we raising children.
Okay. I'll be quiet.
No problem. We've got a question from Hannah. Hannah, please unmute yourself.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi. I just wanted to say quickly that I just absolutely love what you said just there. I feel in our culture there isn't a discussion at all about just positivity surrounding motherhood and surrounding children. And I just think it kind of struck me. I thought, I've never heard someone speak like this just so positively around the pregnancy journey and all that kind of thing. So I just wanted to say thank you. I was wondering about the kind of the hormone thing, like how men have the same kind of reaction. It's quite specific. So I've heard that after childbirth, the woman kind of has, the oxytocin, the love hormone, when she sees the baby. Is it the same for men? Do they have that same hormone, or what is it?
Exactly. It's exactly the same. There's research done in California originally, and there's lots of medical research now. But the chemical response to a woman is identical to the chemical response to a man. There's absolutely no different. The only difference is the men have a stronger protective. So women will, that we have nurture, men have nurture. They've proven that men and women's nurture is identical. But where there was evidence of difference was men had a stronger chemical reaction to protection. So that was the only difference. That's the only difference. And the research is really super cool. If you're interested in people and where we fit together, I mean, it really is cool research. And thank you, Hannah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes,
Marta,
identical.
Thank you. Marta has a question.
Yes, hello. Philip mentioned that you have 4 children, right? I don't have children. I have a puppy and I'm super exhausted. Okay, so I cannot imagine the amount of work you have with 4 children. And I was wondering how did you share the duties with your partner? Did you feel supported enough in raising the children, or even how did you feel about being supporting during the whole pregnancy? How do you feel about it?
Well, we have a dream. When you have a children, you have a dream that your partner's going to give you exactly what you think that you're going to need, and that they're going to share everything with you. That wasn't true. That wasn't true in as much as my partner had a vision that he went out to work, he earned money, and then he came home. And my partner was absolutely amazing on holidays. You sat him in a holiday situation, he was the coolest dad ever. You know, he just did everything with them. But in terms of day to day, that was seen to be my role, and it was okay. But it was one of the things one of the reasons I mentioned this chemical thing, that was an unknown thing for me. So when I entered into my relationship with him and we got married and we had 4 children, the management of bringing our children up, I switched into this zone where he wouldn't know what I knew. So I tended to take control of situations more, that I should have asked him to share more with me. But I had a belief system that said that he wouldn't understand how to be patient, and he wouldn't understand, because I bought into this premise that women are more patient. And women, you know, I bought into that. So I had part to play with separating him from that role. And I never asked him. I never said, look, can we share that? And in part he was to blame as well. We were both in that situation where we didn't understand. I was reinforcing this cultural thing that said men didn't have the same skills. And so I ended up not feeling supported right the way through, and in the end we divorced. But now I know differently, and had I relived my marriage, I would be very different. I would put more trust in him. I would have more belief in him, you know. So we can't blame men when they separate. We need to look at ourselves and say, I can share this, you know, this is okay to share this. It's okay to trust my husband because he has exactly the same responses. I know that now. So he didn't support me as much as I wanted him to, but I have to take some responsibility for that. You know, I really do. So yeah.
But from a man's perspective, I would say that our way to deal with situations is different to how women deal with the situation, and that's the beauty that I think we actually bring balance, where women might be overprotective or over careful. Men are a little bit more, it'll be okay, and that can change. Like, I think you can maybe not feel understood, instead of thinking my partner brings a different aspect, a different view to the same situation. What do you think about that, Sally?
Well, now I know, in hindsight, as you get older and you have more children, now I know what a woman brings to children is she brings this soft, this gentle, this you know, let me wrap my arms around you with a big massive quilt and let's talk about it. Actually, what men bring is courage, and that is needed, because men will say, hang on, you can hold this yourself. You have the courage to do this yourself, whether you're 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I didn't understand that when I was younger and I had all these children. I didn't understand what my husband was bringing to that. So I agree with you. Compare two of you together, that perspective gives children courage. It gives them the adventure. It gives them the belief that they can do things. But if they fall down, there's also somebody else that can link into that. You know, it definitely brings another edge to it. So I agree with you, Philip.
Thank you.
100%.
Masedi, and that's going to be the last question in this round, and then we're going to move on. Masedi? Please unmute.
We can't hear you, maybe.
Sorry. My question is, how do you make sure that you don't lose yourself? I think I understand, because I don't have kids yet. I think I understand that when you have kids, they become a huge part of your life. But I'm a counselor by profession. I've seen many people walk into my room, and it's like when they have kids, they lost themselves. And I've grown to believe that if a person is unhappy, they cannot do their duty as a mother the right way, be it as a mother or be it as a wife or vice versa. So my question is, how do you make sure you don't lose yourself? Because that's like my biggest fear. I think one day I'm gonna wake up and I'll be like, what happened to me? Like, I was taking care of everybody and I forgot to take care of me. So how do you try to strive a balance? Because I don't think I'll be able to take care of myself like I do now, but how do I try to at least halfway?
I think that's a really, really good question. Okay, really good question. I think what happens is when you have children, your identity changes. You end up not being just me, you are us. Okay, so your identity changes. And that identity change is incredible. It's the most amazing experience anybody can go through. It really is. You get to a point within that identity where you start craving adult conversation. So you'll be stuck with children all day long, and then you crave this adult conversation that's not talking about, I don't know, Peppa Pig or something like that in the UK, you know. So we get to a point where you realize that your identity is still as an independent individual, and you need to satisfy that in some way. But if you do it wisely, you will do it not at the cost of your children. And that's where the balance comes in. So you look for an element of, I need to maintain that, because you will feel horrendous guilt if you don't. If you're not at the needs of your children, you feel horrendous guilt. Now, my story's a bit flipped over, only because I left school with no qualifications. I left school actually at 15 and a half and went straight into work. And then I get engaged and I get pregnant and I'm married by the time I'm 19. And then I have 4 children. So my education actually didn't start until I was 28. I went to college, and the only reason I went to college was my children's just started school, and I'm thinking, I can't help them with computers. I can't even switch them on. So I need to understand this world for my children. That helped me get my adult conversation, and I could justify it. And justifying what you're doing for yourself and your family is a really good way of getting that balance. And your children do need you to be aligned with them and walk in a pathway with them. So when you take your adult time, if your adult time is part of your identity that's justified with your family time, this a woman will cope with, and a husband will cope with. So what I did was I found my adult time, and I give myself the adult time, and it was time when my children didn't need me. It could be time when they were in bed. It could be time when, when I put them to school, but I found, and I allowed myself that time, because I became balanced. And then when I was with my children, my life, I accepted my children 100% because it was my children's time. So you're right, Mercedes, and you may not have children yet, Mercedes, but you are definitely tuned in to what you know you need, and you can achieve it. I went on to do, I've got 3 therapeutic qualifications. I've got a business qualification. I run 2 companies when my children were in their teenage years. And if you speak to my children, they say to me, my mother was never not there. I was never not present. So it's good for your kids to see you progressing and to have those different angles. It's very good for them, It's just not having a cost to them. It's not having a cost to them. It's not putting them to the side. You know when your children need you. You know the times they need you. Be there and be present when they need you, and shift your life around that. It's easy. Once you've got it in your head, it's easy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Leanne. That was brilliant. And this part of the conversation, we're gonna end with this part, with let's say, with a happy part, with a positive part. And I think because we reached 1 hour, what we're gonna do is we're gonna split. When we put it on Facebook, we're gonna split the conversation, have this just about pregnancy and giving birth, and then the next part, the darker part, we're gonna have in the second conversation. So thank you very much. Okay.